some apples.
I love Applebloom. When I first watched MLP, Applebloom was one of my favorite characters and the one that I related to the most. The core of Applebloom's character is that she hasn't figured out what she wants to do in life yet, which was how I felt about a year and a half ago. I kept throwing myself at a bunch of different activities, trying to find one that suited me best, before realizing that my one obvious skill, which I'd been performing the entire time, was the one I should probably try and make a career out of. This isn't the most important way in which I relate to Applebloom, which I'll get into when I talk about the showstoppers, but it definitely helps me to appreciate her conflict. That said, Applebloom's conflict pretty much defines her character. Yeah, you could say something about her relationship with Applejack and her friends and blah blah, but seriously, she ain't the most deep or complex character on the show. And that's fine. It just means that there's not much to say about her that isn't completely obvious. As a result, this video is going to deal less with analyzing Applebloom's character or the storyline of the episode, and more to do with looking at a bunch of random things that I noticed while I was watching it. First of all, I know this scene is just meant to be a convenient way to set up the plot, but man, the Equestrian school system must suck all kinds of balls if these ponies are getting a lesson about cutie marks at this age. Not only do all of them know this stuff already, but most of the class already has their marks. The sad thing is that having been taught the history of American settlement at least 4 times between elementary and middle school, I can't even say this is hard to believe. This scene also gives us 80s Cheerilee, which a lot of people have pointed out as a way of debunking my theory about the main 6's ages, though I'm not sure why. The idea is that Cheerilee was in Rarity's class in elementary school, so they must be about the same age. However, Cheerilee's picture shows her appearing to be a teenager, and because of the 80s iconography, it suggests that this picture was taken a long time ago. It's perfectly possible, though, that this picture was taken, say, 4 years ago when Cheerilee was about 12, and that the style was just going out of fashion. The kids would still be too young to really remember it, and Cheerilee would still look a bit younger than she does now in the picture. Yeah, it seems like a stretch in the context of this scene, but in the context of the greater canon, I'm willing to accept it because I still am very attached to the theory that the main 6 are all in their mid-teens. Keeping on the subject of Cheerilee, the story of her cutie mark is actually a pretty great insight into the nature of cutie mark designs and just how unclear their meanings can be. Cheerilee's, for instance, is a group of smiling flowers, which could just have easily suggested that she was some kind of florist. Instead, the flowers represent the smiles of her students. The case has been made again and again by analysts that the cutie marks don't directly represent a pony's talent, but are metaphorical, and Cheerilee spells this out in her dialogue. Fun fact about Cheerilee's mark, by the way. In Japan, the word hanamaru, which literally translates to flower circle, is used to describe these little flowers with smiley faces that teachers award students with in kindergarten for doing a good job. If you've ever played Yoshi's Island or watched the anime series Hanamaru Kindergarten, then you may be familiar with this concept. I'm very interested in seeing how Cheerilee's dialogue in this scene will be translated when this episode airs in Japan. One last thing worth noting about this scene, which you've probably noticed yourself at some point, is that of the 9 ponies in Miss Cheerilee's class, none of them are Scootaloo or Sweetie Belle. By the time the showstoppers rolls around, they appear to be classmates and are shown to have replaced former classmates in the season 2 episodes where they appear. If this was just an inconsistency, it would be a particularly weird one because it's not like they were trying to retcon Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle into having been classmates with Applebloom from the beginning. She actually meets the duo at the end of this episode, so it stands to reason that they were supposed to go to another school until now. So what gives? My best guess is that the 2 of them actually just transferred into Applebloom's class after becoming friends with her. Given the way that young ponies have a tendency to move to entirely new places during adolescence, I imagine that the transfer process in equestrian schools is fairly easy. Moving along now, here's something that I'd really like to see some headcanons about, and yes, I realize I've just damned myself to watching at least 5 to 10 more inevitable headcanon videos. Why do the members of the Apple family get their cutie marks late? Applejack remarks that herself, Granny Smith, and Big Macintosh were all the last in their class to get their mark, and that it might run in the family. I've actually got a theory about this which I'll share in a future video, but until then, I'd like to hear what you think. Here's one for all you guys that have been losing your minds trying to figure out the equestrian economy. Applebloom tells customers that we take cash or credit. Now, how exactly does credit work in this economy? Look, I'm not going to think about it too hard myself because equestrian economics make my head explode. It's bad enough that Applejack pays Bonbon in like 200 apples just because her little sister's being a brat. I didn't put those in my bag! It's interesting that Rainbow Dash's strategy for obtaining cutie marks, which is to do a bunch of random shit until a mark appears, is actually what the CMC continue to use as a strategy in all of their adventures. This just goes towards proving my theory that Rainbow Dash is a terrible role model corrupting the children. The Cutesenera is a pretty interesting concoction. You've got Pinkie Pie hosting the party at Sugar Cube Corner, which is hardly surprising, and it's easy to imagine Pinkie doing this for everyone. The weird part is how there's a bunch of adults at the party who don't seem to be related to the kids, suggesting that this is a pretty open social gathering. But also, the kids don't seem to have their parents there. Maybe Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon's parents were busy, though DT's dad in Family Appreciation Day doesn't seem like the type who'd miss his daughter's big celebration, which suggests that maybe Cuteseneras aren't that big a deal? Leave your comments about how I'm reading way too deep into a poorly thought out scene in a kids show below. Alright, that covers most of the analysis, so let's point out a bunch of random stuff. Derpybloom! This symbol in the karate dojo which has Celestia and Luna on it. Pinbro and Berry Punch, reaffirmed as two of my favorite background ponies. This scene is incredibly awkward. Twilight's "fuck you just say to me, bitch" face. This kid who thinks they may have gotten their cutie mark too soon, which might suggest something interesting about ponies' relationships with cutie marks, but more likely is just a dumb kid getting hyped on the CMC speech. Also, I can't play it for you, but the music in this scene seriously sounds like 90s gangsta rap. I'm American. And that should about do it. Though I feel like I might have forgotten something. It's probably nothing. Now quit with the shakin', let's get bakin'! All you have to do is take a cup of flour, add it to the mix. Then just take a little something sweet, not sour. A bit of salt, just a pinch. Baking these treats is such a cinch. Add a teaspoon of vanilla. Add a bit more and you count to 4 and you never get your fill of cupcakes, so sweet and tasty cupcakes. Don't be too hasty, cupcakes. Cupcakes, cupcakes, cupcakes!
No, not baked goods. Baked bads.